Hello, everyone. It's Rev Nhien, founder of Evolving Enneagram. If you've been seeking a compassion-based contemplative approach to Enneagram inner work, you are certainly in the right place. As you can see, I have a slightly different background than usual. I am actually in the guest bedroom of my parents' house, and you guys are sitting on two pillows. So I hope this works and goes through, but I basically snuck back here to make sure to get you this Sunday sermon, even though I am here this weekend in part to celebrate Mother's Day. So spending some quality time with my parents, recognizing that they are aging, and it's important for me to spend as much quality time with them now as possible. So it is Mother's Day, and I want to send a lot of loving kindness out there because of it, even though historically Mother's Day is a a celebration holiday here in the United States. This topic of motherhood brings up a lot for many of us, right? So whether we are grieving the loss of a mother or mother figure, or grieving as a mother, or are just simply grappling with our relationship with motherhood. I know for me last year, this is very personal, reached the point where I realized, okay, well, I'm never going to have biological children, right? And so there was this time of sort of reckoning for me around the fact that I would never be a biological mother. And so there's a lot today. And I think loving kindness and kindness in period is an important topic. And that is our topic for today. So I've already launched into it. I want to share that today will be in three parts. The first is a little bit of my personal background around this. Second will be Sofer's teaching for embodying kindness. So that's the theme of today, embodying kindness by Enneagram Type. And then in the third section, I will talk about questions that might invite you gently, because we've done a lot of work in these past few weeks. I want to do something really kind of gentle this week in the spirit of kindness, right? Self-kindness. Questions that are particular to each of your Enneagram types. So with that, let's launch in part one. And I definitely, by the way, want to launch in before anyone, comes into the room. They've been told not to, but you never know. So I want to begin by saying that being home reminded me that even as I have been teaching and preaching and living myself with greater self-kindness, increasingly greater kindness toward myself, that being home, being with my family of origin this weekend, just reminded me how much that hasn't been true for more of my life than it has been true, right? And it's an ongoing process, this process of opening up to greater compassion. But just to share some perspective, because there are folks who know me now, they're like, of course, Nhien, there's a compassionate way she approaches things. But I have to say that most of my life, my inner critic was scathing. For I'd say the first 30 something years of my life, I struggled to be alone with myself. And it was only in my 30s that I realized why. Because when I'm alone with myself, or at least back then, I would be so vicious with myself that I would need people who were kind, or back then more like complimentary or affirming. This is before I knew the Enneagram, knew I was a 3, but that it would offset that inner voice that was always hypercritical, like nothing I did was good enough. I had eating issues where if I ate too much that day and didn't follow my diet, I would just start beating myself up at the end of the day. And I even remember, even in ministry, when I was in church ministry, I was still struggling with this. And it was better, but if I did what I thought was a really bad sermon, I might find myself at the end of the day, like, crawled, like huddled, like, out of this like sense that I wanted to hide from the world because I was ashamed. And so that's the perspective from which I share the importance of self-kindness. I used to think, oh, if Nhien, if you're kind to yourself, then you'll just let yourself uh eat too much, you'll let yourself gain weight. Like if you're nice to yourself about things, it was actually the opposite. Like I've actually regulated my weight. I struggled and fluctuated in my weight a lot more in the past when I was less kind to myself. And this is what I've seen in people, that when you beat yourself up more, things don't actually get better. In fact, they get worse because we spiral through that shame. And so I wanted to share this just in hopes that you would know that I'm not just speaking from this place of, yeah, isn't this easy? But recognizing that that I've had quite of a journey of my own, with a lot of, I would say, self-loathing, and being the black sheep of my family, just feeling like, oh, like something's terribly wrong with me, and I don't fit in here, I don't fit in the world. And self-compassion and self-kindness have been the journey for me of actually coming to a place where I love not only myself, but other people better. Like I'm kinder and gentler with others. And I have found that people transform better through kindness than they do. They don't change through self-berating, is what I've seen. So with that, oh, the other thing I want to share is that part of my self-hatred was also like, treating my body like it was in the way, right? There's a very three-ish way of like, if your body's sick or if it's hurting, then you're not loving it, but like chastising it. That was my approach. And so one thing I want to offer you, if you haven't learned this before, is this um, speaking words of kindness over your own body. So the things that you might like be angry at, like whether your body's not functioning like you want it to be, or whether you have gained weight that you don't want to have. And I used to be very self flagellating, this like calling myself ugly and what's wrong with you and all these things, and understanding that I can like whisper and comfort myself into well-being, right, is really a profound shift. So that's kind of my personal take on kindness, embodying self-kindness. And now I want to speak to Sofer's practice that he offers in this book. So of course, Sofer's practice is for kindness in general, but I want to emphasize this week kindness toward self. And frankly, I generally believe that when we practice kindness toward ourselves, we become naturally, spontaneously kinder toward others. And when we practice kindness toward others, we are just spontaneously, organically kinder to ourselves. I know there are a lot of people who think, oh, no, I'm just so nice to others and I'm not to myself. I actually don't really believe that. I think that we can be fake nice to others, meaning in the sense that if you really think about it, like people pleasing isn't an authentic kindness. Oftentimes that nicey or people pleasing is a way we manipulate others to not abandon us or to get what we want from them, even if it's something we want emotionally, right? Like, and so what I found though is when we cultivate authentic kindness, like a real organic spirited kindness, it fills us up and nourishes us as well, right? So Tara Brach, whom I love, has said, feeling compassion for ourselves in no way releases us from responsibility for our actions. Rather, it releases us from the self-hatred that prevents us from responding to our life with clarity and balance. So I offer that for those of you who still might feel like, oh no, it's selfish to feel compassion for ourselves, but actually we end up being more grounded and balanced from this place of self-embrace, right? And so Sofer's practice then, he says this at the beginning of each day, and I invite you to do this week, set an intention to treat yourself and others with kindness and to notice and celebrate any moments of kindness that occur. And again, this is Sofer's teaching. Throughout the day, as often as you remember, ask yourself, how can I be kind to myself? right now. Pay particular attention to how you speak to yourself, aiming for gentle words and a kind inner tone. When engaging with others, look for the goodness in them. So rather than trying to perform like a grand deed, aim for simple and honest expressions of your heart. Mother Teresa, he reminds us, famously advised, don't look for big things, right? Do small things with great love. Sometimes the smaller the thing, the greater the love. So anytime you notice a moment of kindness in yourself from another or between others, pause and let it register. This is a moment of kindness. In this moment, for instance, the old me would have been like, oh my God, like just the haphazard ness of how I'm recording this video might have been a cause for great self-condemnation. And I'm practicing being kind to myself and saying, you know what? It's actually quite sweet that I chose my family over my work this week in terms of my priorities, right? And so I could have set this video earlier when it was lighter and it was easier, but my mom wanted to talk to me. And I was like, I haven't, um, I've been in a process of reconciliation and deep healing with my mom over these last 5 to 10 years. And I'm going to take this opportunity to prioritize my connection with her, right? To live the life that I teach, right? To live a more loving life. And so taking that in, I take it in this moment and I might say, this offering of maybe even of myself with my mother to my mother and my offering to myself in this moment, this is a moment of kindness. Breathing, breathing. And so Sofer teaches, allow your attention to linger there, noticing how it feels in your body, appreciating the beauty of kindness. So with that, let's turn to the Enneagram. So this teaching here I want to offer this week is about inviting you to ask a question of yourself, because I want to really keep this simple. I mean, you can even stop here and just focus on kindness and see it as a kindness to yourself. It's like, oh, this week might be a week I don't want to do any more Enneagram inner work, right? But hopefully even these will not feel like so much work. By the way, next week we're talking about ease. So I'm easing my way into next week's talk as well with this topic. So for type ones, ask yourself, what did you set down? What did I set down today, this week, as an act of kindness? And then exhale. Long, long exhale to help you set it down. For the two, how were you nurtured? How did you let yourself be nurtured as an act of kindness? Or how did you nurture yourself, right? And then inhale, deep inhale, receive, let yourself receive, even if it's difficult. For the three, what feels authentic and true? Visualize your breath going through the center of your chest. What feels authentic and true? Can you honor that as an act of kindness for yourself this week? For the four, what do you appreciate, right? Rather than going to longing for what is missing, there's appreciation for the present moment. And I want you to breathe into that. Breathe into the present moment. Yeah, I am appreciating is the language you could use for yourself. And then for the five, what moved you? Right? Fives can be very open to curiosity that inspires wonder and awe. But instead of just thinking about it, consider it an act of kindness of letting it fill your heart, right? So inhale deeply and sense into how life can fill your heart and not just deplete you, which is the limiting belief in the 5. For the 6, when did you let go? Notice how you gift yourself a kindness when you can release something that burdens you, burdens your mind, worries you, as an act of kindness. When did you let go? And you might even breathe an audible sigh of relief. Right? Let your body experience this. This is embodied self-kindness. For the 7, what satisfied you, right? So if you think about the 7, it's like you're pretty good at like grasping for what you want and asking for it and going after it, but letting yourself sit with it to savor it. Savoring something is an act of kindness that allows that something to fulfill you, right? Savor something in the present, or you can savor the memory of something amazing that you experienced that you just whizzed through in the past as an act of self-kindness, breathing it in and sensing your heart. For the 8, asking, how are you gentle? And this can help you because you're already gentle with certain people or certain things or animals, right? Can you bring that gentleness to something that you've been judging harshly in yourself? How are you gentle? Kind of asking that this week. Yeah. And slowing, maybe taking deeper breaths to slow yourself enough to really feel that. And for the 9, do you matter to yourself? So feel into the kindness that you so naturally have toward others, and then send that kindness back toward yourself. Because so often you can think about how you don't feel like you matter enough to others, but really, do you matter to yourself? What act of self-kindness can you do this week to show that to yourself that you matter to yourself? Yeah? Okay. So how about for the 9, taking a breath and letting the experience of the self-kindness root into the ground? For you, becoming rooted can be so important because you can be disconnected from your body, right? So I want to close with a quote from Sofer. He writes, kindness comes from kin, highlighting the fundamental truth of our interdependence. Kindness connects us to the human family. A universal quality, kindness nourishes the heart, heals isolation, and brightens our lives. It sees the potential for good in all and serves as a potent guide for collective transformation. These little acts of kindness, including and especially those little acts of kindness to yourself, I think they can transform the world. They create a collective field of kindness. Namaste.